Hi, I'm Sanjit. So, you want to be a wildlife photographer?
A wildlife and conservation photographer, it's kind of like a merger of a couple of genres there. Conservation meaning for those that go out and do works on nature and wildlife where they try to either collect scientific data on a certain species or certain location. And a wildlife photographer focuses on wildlife and the environment that these wildlife species live in. Recently, I was photographing snakes. I know nothing about snakes, but while photographing snakes, fortunately enough, we had a couple of field experts, and they said, "Don't go too close to that one. Hospital too far away." So you kind of like gauge how dangerous they are, but then during a shoot, of course, we want to focus on that species, and we do it in a natural environment. So we got to be very, very careful there. Actually, it's a very broad spectrum of wildlife photography. For me, personally, I try not to just go with one subject. Like, for instance, those that are interested in birds only photograph birds. Those that are interested in big cats only photograph big cats. But I would say that I like to do things a little bit more opportunistically. If there's an elephant swimming across the river, I will take that opportunity and photograph that elephant swimming across the river. On a normal day, there's a lot of research and preparation to be done. First, you need to know what are you shooting, where are you shooting it at, what's the purpose of it, who's coming along, how's the weather at the location, are you taking a boat, so are you taking a plane or train, how to pack your gear, how much of equipment are you going to carry on your back while you are on assignment. So all that and even more, I could go on for days talking about this, need to be done in your research and preparation period, because you need to know what you need to carry and how accessible you are to the outside world while you're doing an assignment. We need to coordinate together with the NGOs and the conservation bodies that we're working with. And I think the toughest part of that is syncing our schedules, also to have the meeting and the final brief before going out on a shoot. Preparation for the shoot can take up to 1 to 2 weeks, depending on everyone's schedule. And you will eventually gauge the images that you want to get. That takes a lot of research as well. Pretend that you're working with a corporate client or corporate agency to realize each other's vision on what they need as the end product. Then, as a wildlife photographer, I need to reverse engineer that and prepare for what I can get as the best to their vision. Because the best thing about nature and wildlife is that it's so unpredictable. You can plan to the very detail, but when you're on site, everything changes. So once we've got everything packed and we are just reversing the car from the house, heading to the airport, or taking a long drive to any corner of the country, the neighbor usually peeks out, raises an eyebrow and say, "Hey, are you going back to your village or are you moving out?" That's how much gear we have. First and foremost is that you always check and prep your equipment again and again, day in and day out. Make sure that you have enough batteries, enough cards for all of the units. Make sure your tripods are working well, because you could be working on boats, you could be working on very hazardous terrains. Things can happen so fast that you might not have time to dig into your luggage and say, "Oh my goodness, where's my spare SD card? Did I back this up yet?" No. That is what I'm thinking about while I'm on my ride or while I'm on my hike into the forest. Now, the hike could take 2 hours, it could take 7 hours. We have breaks in between. Usually lunchtime, nothing much happens because everything gets so warm. And so the wildlife tend to go into the shade to rest and to forage a little bit. Usually, when focusing on a particular species, um, this is where the beauty of working together with NGOs and conservationists is. They would have done their research. They would have identified a couple of areas where these species might exist. This helps you get your shot. There's no way that you can just walk into the forest, la-di-da, hey, and find something. That hardly never happens. The main thing about becoming or sustaining as a nature wildlife photographer is real life experience. It is great if you have any sort of qualification on paperwork. The real world, the real life scenario is totally different. Courses help. Take what you've learned from the course, put it into field experience, give it a year or two, go back for another course and reapply that. Keep growing as a photographer. You can read a book, you can read 10 books about it, but if you don't apply it, you just have a good collection in your library, a good collection of books in library. You need to know your gear, you need to know the settings of your gear, you need to know ambient light, you need to know where the shadows, the highlights are at all times. And because wildlife is so unpredictable, sometimes I find myself just shooting really blind, but knowing where my camera settings were at, we can get the shot pretty quickly. If you started seriously into nature and wildlife photography, honestly, you won't be able to make much for time being. It is until that you've earned experience and you're published, and when you're in demand, that's where you get to demand. But the beauty about it is that you set your standard rates. How much do you value yourself? How much do you value your artwork? That's how much you can set your bar at. There are different challenges that come in between, and a lot of times is the ones that you never thought about before. These are some of the risks, right? You're gonna risk yourself exhaustion. While hiking, there's a lot of hazards. While working with wildlife species, there's a lot of hazards. Infections will come from insects. If you get cuts and scrapes, if you're allergic to something. So those are the worst parts about being a wildlife photographer. If I were to summarize it this way, is the human engagement once again after a long expedition. When someone sees this picture and they go like, cool, I've never seen that before. What is it? Being in a natural environment where you're surrounded by everything natural, you do not get anything artificial. You don't get artificial sounds of motor vehicles, school alarm bells ringing in between, or the early morning sound of your toaster going ting. It's okay to be fickle-minded at the beginning. It's okay to try all different kinds of avenues in photography before you find your passion in one. That is actually very, very great thing to do, because by sampling, only then you find a favorite. You will definitely be rich in knowledge and experience, but in terms of dollars and cents, it will come when you're determined enough.